Hello, I'm Mark Hughes. Welcome to this edition of Disability Viewpoints. We're going to talk on, my guests are going to be about the recent session that ended in Minnesota, all the budget talks and everything like that. We'll bring you up to date on different issues, so stay tuned for that. Kila Marie Granda from the head of MNCCD will be our guest, and Josh Berg from Accessible Space, so we're looking forward to that. Our special guest host today is none other than Joan Wilshire, and she's going to talk about autonomous vehicles. Aren't you, Joan?
Great. Yep. They're coming to Minnesota. So I've got Thomas Johnson Kaiser, who is an assistant director for the CFE. And we're going to have a good conversation of how we are going to get those vehicles on our roads.
Do you know that I've seen advertisements for Waymo on our local news here recently? So it's a real happening thing. So stay tuned to our show. That's coming up next, Disability Viewpoints, right here on SPNN. Stay tuned, and we'll be right back. Welcome back to Disability Viewpoints. We have two very knowledgeable guests on what just happened at the state of Minnesota hearings this past session, and we'll talk about probably some budgetary things. And so let's have everybody introduce themselves.
Hi, I'm Kila Marie Granda. I am the policy co-chair and a board member of the MNCCD, Minnesota Consortium for Citizens with Disabilities. I also serve on a variety of other task forces and coalitions, commissions that are really dedicated to helping individuals with disabilities, advocating for a better quality of life.
My name is Josh Berg. I work for a nonprofit based here in St. Paul called Accessible Space, Inc. We provide affordable, accessible housing for individuals with disabilities, brain injury seniors, like Kilo, on a variety of different other task forces and groups, member of ARM, member of MNCCD, and this is Medicaid, and a lot of other groups that really are trying to navigate the human services space, be able to support Minnesotans with disabilities in a variety of different ways, and happy to be here and chat.
Well, that's nice, Josh, and thanks for being here. I guess my first question is this. When you listen to the nightly news or read the paper like we all do, and the beginning of the session is you have a little bit of a surplus, and then as the session goes on, then you don't, how does that affect accessible space?
Unfortunately, as we saw the session evolve and then we finally got some targets within the last just few days of session, we saw where I think human services and disability services in particular kind of fell in the list of priorities according to our at least leadership at the legislature and the administration this year. And that ultimately was a $300 million cut to human services when choices were made to reduce taxes or reduce tab fees or do other sorts of things. Really it was on the backs of human services and individuals with disabilities and providers like that. So, for ASI in particular, I think that is a reason for pause of, okay, where do we depend on Medicaid. We depend on all of our funding comes through state or federal dollars. And when we see the state again making significant cuts, last session it was over $1 billion to human services. This session another $300 million. It's really like, all right, we're going to be fighting for every crumb that is left, and ultimately it puts us all in a position to not be the ones that are impacted the most by the cuts that are shouldered by all of us.
Well, when this first started, we learned that the federal monies, first of all, were going to be cut. So the Minnesota programs that were federal programs, now had to become state programs. And boy, that's a nice, easy thing to say. That might be a quick fix, but it also puts more strain on budgets and numbers and people in the disabled community itself and operations like that help disabled people.
The funding over the years has always been something. It's a variable, so I can't even say it's problematic. It's always there, and it's something we've always had to navigate at Accessible Space. We've been around for 45 plus years, and have received all of our funding through state and federal dollars. And by federal dollars, I simply mean because Medicaid is obviously a match between state and federal dollars. That's what we depend on significantly. We also have HUD dollars flowing into all of our properties that we do, the housing side of things. But you more often than not, in the years that I've been doing this work, it's been cuts, not additions, and not reimbursement increases. I think we are in a time right now where there's a lot up in the air. I mean, our system is resetting here at the state and federal levels. I mean, we can't control what the federal administration does. We certainly can't control what the state administration does. We can have some influence at the state level with the legislature and how we make sure that programs and services that we provide continue to be able to exist. But I think it's bigger than ASI. It's bigger than any one provider or one stakeholder. It's how are we going to do this as a state to be able to support people with disabilities in whatever way that is needed, whether it's housing, whether it's transportation, whether it's supports and services. So I think these next few years, with a new administration coming in and a significantly new portion of the legislature coming in, it's an opportunity to reprioritize or finally make it a priority.
Josh, I want to just go off of what you just said and and maybe this is something that was already going to be asked, but we're off session, right? But there's actually going to be a hearing coming up for the Senate Committee on Human Services. So what is that about? Can you kind of give an update on what's going on there?
Yeah, so it still hasn't officially been posted or reposted yet. There was a hearing scheduled, I think, for June 10th in the Senate Human Services. Senator Hoffman called a hearing, and it is going to be rescheduled. Tentatively, I think, was July 1st. And then the original intent of that hearing was to talk about the revalidation process that has been in the news as of late of not going so well at the state level. So thousands of providers in high-risk programs that had been flagged as high risk for potential fraud or things like that have been going through a process called revalidation to ensure that all the providers are checking all the boxes, they have all the right information into DHS. And this was something that DHS needed to do to comply with the corrective action plan that they agreed to with CMS. They submitted it in December and January and was finally approved later in February or March. But revalidation has not gone as planned. And as of May 31st or June 1st, thousands of providers were disenrolled because of the revalidation process. And now we find ourselves in another situation. And that's what the hearing was going to start to address or talk through.
So if you organizations had a collaborative and went to the governor's office, would they be with open arms and try to help you, or what do you think would be the outcome?
Well, actually, Josh and I are part of a group that did that and have been doing that. So we're part of a small kind of coalition of disability leaders from across different, multi-stakes organizations multi-stakeholders. And so we actually had a meeting with the governor's office here about 2 months ago, maybe, and just kind of laid the groundwork. And I think that's going to continue. We're hoping to see that relationship continue. But I think that we're really hoping to lay the groundwork through this. We don't know if we can really affect change right at the moment, although we'd really like to at the governor's office. And we're going to continue to try. But we know that we believe we can really affect change with the next administration. And we know, they're coming into our state. We here are, although it's Amy Klobuchar most likely, but, or whoever it is, it's going to be their state too. But these individuals are coming in and we already have a framework built up. And unfortunately, all of this, has created kind of a scarcity mindset amongst, stakeholder groups, organizations. We're fighting for the crumbs that are left over. And, instead of doing that, instead of fighting, we really need to come together outline these priorities, what we most need, what we need to support individuals with disabilities, quality of life, and then have that foundation laid for the next administration when they come in. So that's what we're doing right now.
Right.
Josh is actually having
That's
hosting a series of meetings and things like that, so we can talk through various issues and then also get ready for whoever's next.
That's a good plan. And if you want to get back on here and talk about some of that, you certainly can. Let me take you back in history on housing, because I know housing came up with accessible space. Rep. Mike Howard ran the housing committee for a long time, and if you went to those committees, you usually got some action. Is there's still some validation as to having some of the housing committee become incorporated with your housing issue to see if you can get monies for that? It's just a thought. Can that work?
Yeah, no, I mean, I think housing right now has not even been one of the larger topics that we've been talking about in the human services space, but so much of the issue it's that core foundational root issue of we don't have enough affordable housing, we don't have enough affordable accessible housing, we don't have enough just housing variety across the state of Minnesota, and not enough dollars flowing into that. So that is a huge issue. I mean, forget about Medicaid services and programs. If you don't have a roof over somebody's head, we are not able to serve them in the best, most effective way, nor can they receive those services and supports in a way that benefits them the most, because they're worried about where they're going to live next, where they're going to get their next meal from. So housing is a critical issue.
So anything we forgot that you want to add on before we go?
I would just double down on everything Kilo had just said just a minute or so ago of trying to set the foundation for a collaborative spirit moving forward. And I mean, we want to find those solutions. We want to work together collaboratively. I think the stakeholder community is ready and willing, and the invitation is out to the administration. And now hopefully they will pull up a chair to the table that we've all created, because it hasn't been reciprocal or the other way around. So we're going to take the initiative there, and we have, and so many amazing stakeholders have joined the conversation, and so we invite the current administration and the future administration to join us.
Very, very good. Kilo, I want you to have the final word segment also. Is there anything I forgot and messed up that you want to capitalize on?
No, I think everything that Josh said, everything that you said is perfectly spot on. Right now, we have built a table, and it is our table, and we would like to invite folks to come in and really meet us where we're at. And so right now, I really feel, I've been talking to so many people within the community, and it feels like over and over again, this has been coming off the backs of us, individuals with disabilities. First, the fraud, and then double down by the government, take more money, and somehow the pieces of the fact that we're humans, the fact that people are dying, the fact that, just look around. We don't have services. We are literally in a position where individuals don't feel hope. They don't feel like there's any opportunity for them to have any quality of life. I think what we need to do is really give that message of hope out right now. So,
you can't give up. We got to keep moving forward. And Joan Wilshire has said that for years on end. Here's something I'd like to leave you with this thought, both of you, before we go. When you have that meeting on July 1st, if you decide that you want to get some of those folks on this show, I would like to do that. And we'll talk to, you can email Joe Urbis and say you'd like to get back on because you've learned this from the governor's office or any coalition. This is a serious enough subject coming up, and it is a budget year next year when we start. So I think we should do a lot of talking and a lot of brainstorming to get things nailed down. Just a thought. I want to hear what both of you have to say. If you would be amendable to that, I would certainly do it for you.
Josh?
Oh my gosh, of course. I mean, I think anything we can do to bring people together and to amplify this message and the spirit of collaboration, problem solving, and fixing the system and moving it forward, because lives depend on it and people depend on it. And we can dance around and do the budgeting figures and cap things all we want, but people's needs don't get capped, and the needs do not go away. And we need to have a system that functions, and we're willing to do whatever it takes.
So here's the deal. Let's get some people from the governor's office, some legislators, and start talking early. and it's a budget year next year. For example, accessible space been around 45 years. That's a lot of work gone by in those years. I don't want to see any of the disability business that we use shut the door. So we got to keep ourselves open, and if you guys are amenable to that, I'd like to do that. And again, thank you for both being on the show, and we'll be right back with more Disability Viewpoints in just a moment.
Autonomous vehicles are coming to a road in Minnesota any day now. With me today to talk about this great issue is Thomas Johnson Kaiser, Assistant Director of the Connected and Automated Vehicle Division of MnDOT, the Minnesota Department of Transportation. Well, welcome, Thomas.
Thanks for having me, Joan.
Yep. Well, you know, you and I talk a lot about autonomous vehicles. I'm lucky enough to sit on the Connected and Automated Vehicle Council, appointed by the governor, and a lot of good things happening with the whole area of autonomous vehicles. So why don't we start off with the basics? I think we should always tell people in the beginning here, what are autonomous vehicles?
Yeah, absolutely. So autonomous vehicles are vehicles that use technology to perform the basic driving functions. So steering, braking, accelerating, things like that. So there's various levels of automation. So there's a lot of vehicles on the road today that have lower levels, more assistant technology. Think adaptive cruise control, automatic emergency braking, lane keeping assist, things like that. And those technologies have been around in our vehicles for many years. But recently we're getting to the point where there are more fully automated vehicles where that's the potential the vehicle could drive itself, where there would not need to be a human driver.
Cool. Well, I know that's what we're inching towards, it seems like, in Minnesota. So now I know there's, with the CAV, the Connected and Automated Vehicle Council, why don't you talk about how that was created and why, and like what's the focus of that whole council?
Yeah, so the Governor's Council on Connected Automated Vehicles has been around since 2018. It was first an executive order by Governor Dayton and then renewed by Governor Walz. So it's been around for his whole term as governor. And it's a group of 15 people that are appointed by the governor to plan and prepare the state for this emerging technology of connected automated vehicles. So thinking about what those different impacts might be to Minnesota, how can we plan and prepare to reach those potential benefits that this technology has.
Right. Now, within that council, I know there's a lot of projects going on. And why don't you start talking about a few of them, and we'll see how many of them we can get through in a short time.
Yeah, absolutely. So a few of the main things that we've done with the council, the last year or so, we've really focused on developing recommendations for automated vehicle policy. So Minnesota is one of a few states that currently doesn't have any rules or regulations, legislation specific to automated vehicles. So the council focused on how can we develop some guidelines, some recommendations for automated vehicles in Minnesota. So every state handles it a little bit different. There is a lack of federal regulation currently for automated vehicles, so it's been up to states to determine how they want to regulate this technology. So the council kind of took it upon ourselves to understand what the landscape is across the country and what would work best for Minnesota. So at the end of 2025, the council, with your help, Joan, developed recommendations for automated vehicle policy that were very useful during this past legislative session.
So did those get put into any kind of law of any sorts? Or?
Yeah, great question. So during this last legislative session, there was a lot of discussion on automated vehicles. There was a number of bills that were introduced that had various degrees of the recommendations from the council. But ultimately, none of the bills on automated vehicles passed this legislative session in 2026. So I think it will be another big topic in the upcoming session in 2027. So now is really a good time to be having this conversation, as it still is to be determined on what the rules and regulations for automated vehicles will be in Minnesota.
Right. Well, and it's something we can ask all our viewers if they'd like to talk to their own legislators. about, both on the House and Senate, how important it is that we need to get some legislation passed so that we can at least get these vehicles coming to the state and maneuvering through all of our elements. I think that's, the uphill battle that we have is how do we get these vehicles in the state to start practicing driving with the snow, sleet, rain. In any given day, I think we all know it, whether it not just changes weekly, but hourly,
Yeah, absolutely. And in the past few years, most of these vehicles have been tested in more of those southern states,
Right.
warmer climates, maybe easier environments than Minnesota.
Right.
We're starting to see these different automated vehicle providers move more north to be testing and operating in climates similar to Minnesota. So,
Right.
Without that clear legislation, it's probably less likely that any automated vehicle operator is going to come to Minnesota. So that was kind of the goal of the council, was to how can we create that framework
Right.
that ensures safety for automated vehicles.
Right. Another project that I'm familiar with as well, we had him on as a guest before, and that's the Go Marty project. Why don't you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, Go Marty is a great example of the potential benefits for automated vehicles in Minnesota. So this is a pilot that began in 2022 up in Grand Rapids, Minnesota, and they had a number of automated vehicles that were with a provider called May Mobility, which is based out of Michigan, and they had vehicles that operated point-to-point on demand for folks. So you would use an app or call into a local call center to request a ride. Initially there was about 70 stops around the Grand Rapids area, and then it would tell you where the closest pickup point is. You'd say where you want to go, you'd drop off at the closest drop-off point, and it was free for folks to use. And initially 3 of the 5 vehicles were wheelchair accessible vehicles as well. So that was the main focus with the folks in Grand Rapids, wanting those additional transportation options, especially for those who are unable to drive themselves. So the project saw a lot of success with ridership, and the project received a federal grant to expand for additional 3 years. So it will be going at least for another about 2 or so years here, and we'll see what the future is. But they've expanded in area and number of hours they're operating and number of vehicles as well. So it continues to grow, and I think last time I looked, they probably had over 50,000 riders on Go Marty just in the last handful of years. So it's been very, very successful and popular with the community.
Yeah, well, that is so cool that, one, it's still going, but it's in a rural part of the state. So I think that's fantastic to hear those numbers and to know that it's still running. That's fantastic. What other projects have you been working on that we should all know about?
Yeah, something that we're really excited about that we recently launched is called our Community-Driven CAV project. So the idea here is that we go into communities throughout the state and really understand what their transportation challenges are, and then we can work with them to understand how this connected automated vehicle technology could help solve those transportation challenges. So traditionally, technology has just been brought to communities maybe without their input or their thoughts, and we really want to start with communities to understand what those transportation challenges are and see how connected automated vehicle technology could help solve those challenges. So,
what are those 5 communities?
yeah, so we just decide which communities they will be. So there's a variety throughout the state. So one is in International Falls, so way up north, Minnesota. So another one will be Ramsey County League of Local Cities, so a few cities in Ramsey County. There's one with the Fond du Lac Band of Ojibwe, and then there's another community in southeastern Minnesota, and then also the Mille Lacs area of Minnesota. So kind of a good spread of communities throughout the state.
What type of vehicles are these that are actually being used?
Yeah, so with the Go Marty project in particular, so that one they used, there's a few different vehicles, but the main one is a Toyota Sienna vehicle that May Mobility.
So it's like a van.
Yeah, yep, so exactly. So it's like a minivan
Sure.
that has that additional technology on it to make it be able to perform those automated driving functions. So the Go Marty vehicles can usually fit 5 people at a time pretty comfortably, and then if there is a wheelchair rider, then on those wheelchair accessible vehicles,
Right.
they can fit one wheelchair passenger and then 2 additional passengers in the vehicle as well. And that's just one example in Minnesota. There's a large variety of different use cases that you see for automated vehicles, anywhere from automated trucking to full semi trucks that are working on automation to more small passenger vehicles as well. So kind of the whole spectrum of vehicles. There's different companies out there trying to figure out how they can make them self-driving.
You kind of forget about the automated trucking piece, because that's huge, isn't it?
Yeah, it hasn't seen a whole lot in Minnesota yet, but they're definitely in other parts of the country continue to expand different automated trucking providers looking to test their technology, and there's a few pretty successful pilots that are happening throughout the country.
Well, because they're over statewide as well as nationwide, a shortage of drivers, right, for the trucking piece. So that's got to be huge then. Fantastic. So autonomous vehicles, there's no reason why it shouldn't be on the road. What's the one thing the public and the community could be doing to help in this effort?
Yeah, I think the main thing that we try and do at the Minnesota Department of Transportation is really educate and engage folks on this topic. So really understand what they're excited about, what they're concerned about. So the main thing that folks can do is reach out to MnDOT, reach out to your elected officials, reach out to other folks in the transportation industry, and let us know what you think about this technology, so how we can best make this technology work for the people of Minnesota.
And lastly, what's the website if people want to learn more about the Connected Automated Vehicle, CAV?
Yeah, absolutely. So you can always visit our website. It's dot.state.mn.us/automated. And another easy way, if you just Google MnDOT CAV, you'll come right up to our website. Yep.
Great. Well, fantastic. This has been a great conversation, Thomas. Thanks for coming on, and we'll look forward to that autonomous vehicle ride anytime soon here in the upcoming Minnesota roads.
Thanks, Joan.
Yep, great. And we'll be right back after these messages.
I would like to thank Kilmer Granda for being here, head of MNCCD today. It brought a lot of insight onto what really happened in the last session here at the state of Minnesota. Josh Berg from Accessible Space had a lot of good insight too, and they have a lot of interesting hearings coming up real soon with our local state leaders, and I hope they'll come back here and bring us an update on that too. And Joan Wilshire's segment was really good. I want to share a little bit piece of family news. My godchild just graduated from the U of M veterinarian school and now works for a local veterinarian clinic here. So Dr. Wyke is off and running. We wish her well. And Joan, your guest?
Well, we had a great show on autonomous vehicles because we're going to get them soon. And so we'll be able to see those vehicles on the road here in Minnesota. And thanks to Thomas Johnson Kaiser, the assistant director from CAV of MnDOT, that came in and talked to us about what it's going to take to get them on our road.
Coming up next time on Disability Viewpoints is none other than Dan Stoltz, CEO at Blaze Credit Union. He has a big program they just started on affordable housing, so we'll want to find out more about that because that was also mentioned in today's show, issue of affordable housing. So stay tuned, and we'll see you all next time. And we'll be, like I said, we'll be back with Dan Stoltz from Blaze Credit Union. Thanks for watching, and be safe out there. We'll talk soon. Bye-bye now.